Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar all about the amazing country of Mexico. So we are going to get started here shortly. We're going to give everybody a chance to get logged in and connected to the audio and video and all that good stuff. Sometimes Zoom takes us off the path a bit and needs to update. So we're going to make sure that everybody has a chance to do that. And while we are letting everybody in, I just want to go through a few housekeeping points here. We are recording this webinar, so at any point you need to jump off and go attend to some other things for your day, you're welcome to do so. The recording will be sent out to everyone who is registered for the webinar in the next coming days, so feel free to do so. Also, familiarize yourself with the Q&A section on your control panel. That is the place where you can drop questions that you may have throughout the presentation that our team will go back and answer at the end. And additionally, just one more point here, we do have a dedicated email address set up for our webinars. So if you would like to send us some more personal questions or things that you want us to address after the presentation, you can send those to questions at EcoVillages.Life. So we are going to get started. And throughout this presentation today, we do have some polls for you to just so we can get more familiar with you and what your goals are, and maybe to help kind of frame your thinking about potentially relocating to Mexico. So our first poll today is, have you had the chance to visit Mexico? So have you been several times? Maybe you've been once on a honeymoon, or maybe spring break years and years ago. Maybe you've been several times and you've gotten a chance to explore lots of the country and the different states and regions and things like that. Or maybe not yet, but it's high on your list. So I'm going to give everybody about 15 seconds or so to answer here. We do have some answers coming in. It's about split here, it's about 50-50 between yes, you've been several times, and you've been only once. So nobody yet here on the line saying that they haven't been. So good to have some people that have had a chance to visit already. All right. Moving right along here, we're going to go through some introductions here. My name is Ali Rodriguez, and if you've had a chance to join us for any of our other country relocation webinars, you're probably very familiar with me and my name and my story. But for those of you that are new on the line, I am a U.S. expat that moved from Texas about 4.5, almost 5 years ago now. And, moved to the Central American region, started my journey off in Belize, and am currently now in Panama City, Panama. So have a lot of experience around the region here in Central America. And along with me here, we have Patrick Hebert. Patrick, tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks, Ellie. Good to be back on another webinar on the exciting country of Mexico. My background is I'm a Canadian citizen, now a resident of a few countries down here in Central America. Well, actually, Mexico has kind of a special place in my heart. It was the first place that I owned property outside of Canada. And also, one of the, like most Canadians, kind of one of the top places people go to for vacations. So it's, it's been it was kind of my introductory course to the Latin American culture and lifestyle down here, and I really loved it. So that was me. Well, I think you're trying to get me to stop. So
it wasn't me cutting you off. It's just my mouse was very sensitive, but that's perfect. Perfect intro, Patrick.
I got the memo.
And with you there over, it's my right, but maybe your left, is Andrea. Andrea, tell us about you.
Thank you, Ali. Hello, everybody. I am a pediatrician from Ecuador, as the slide says. I am an expat as well, an expat that has been moving through Latin America. So I was born in Ecuador, but then I have been lucky enough to live in Nicaragua, later in Belize, and now I am in Panama, as well as Ali and my husband, Patrick. And the good thing about being here is that we have been able to go and travel all through around these countries, including Mexico. I was telling Patrick the other day that Mexico, even before I visited Mexico, it was a country that has been very influential in me, and mostly in Ecuador, because we have had a lot of, we've been pretty close with the culture in Mexico, the music, the food, the shows, like mostly all the art in Mexico has been something that we learn a lot from them. Even when you go to other countries, sometimes you know that there are some slangs that you don't understand, but we practically grew up with the Mexican culture as well. So it is also very close to my heart. And then thankfully I was able to visit it too. So I'm glad that I can talk to you with you guys, talk about it with you guys too.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. So just moving right along here, we are a team of very diverse backgrounds and started our journeys, I guess what you could say overseas or our international journeys away from our home countries at different points in our life. And Patrick, tell us a little bit about the EcoVillages team and just kind of why we're bringing this up right now.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. I mean, we'll keep these chats about the team and the company short, but just so you people out there know who we are and what we do. EcoVillages designs communities around the Latin American region. Of course, we're expanding into other areas as well. But my son Spencer and I co-founded the company, and we're growing pretty rapidly. There's a lot of people that are moving to communities down in this region. You can see Andrea on there as a property expert. Juan is our finance director. Juan's based out of the Panamanian office. Herman is our chief architect with our other architects in the Managua, Nicaragua office. And Ellie, you're on the side there too, and you're based in Panama as well. So it's a great team. There's others that were included in it, and we're really enjoying these days because we're seeing so many people from different countries around the world moving and relocating and investing in this region. And just so you know a little bit about EcoVillages, like I said, this isn't an EcoVillages commercial. We're not developing communities and selling them to you. So this isn't about that. This is where we design the communities for other developers and landowners, but we build them and design them based on our philosophies. And really what that is minimalism. And by minimalism, we just making use of the space the best we can as efficiently as possible. Eco sensibility, and we use that term because we're in our mind, eco friendliness needs to be coupled with financial benefit. So, if it's just a feel-good thing that you're doing for eco-friendliness, it's probably not going to be sustainable and last. But for instance, if you put solar panel on your home, that's great for eco sensibility because it also is great for lowering your power bill, and everybody likes that. Self-sufficiency or self-sustainability is a huge thing these days, and so we build in common areas with community gardens, community orchards, and all sorts of ways for people to become more self-sustainable. People are getting away from relying on corporations and governments and unsustainable ways of living and wanting to kind of grow their own food in a lot of cases. So you can do that on the communities that we make. And then finally, liberty. It's people might think, well, how does liberty come into this? Well, I mean, really, we're building communities for people that are trying to get away to some extent from some of the divisiveness in many countries these days, and the whole COVID situation really kind of highlighted political division and everything, and we're more about freedom oriented and not cancel culture and that sort of thing. So we kind of build that into the philosophy of our communities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good kind of 30,000 foot definition of who we are. And if you want to know more about us, obviously you're welcome to visit our Facebook pages, Instagram, and kind of see a little bit more about what we do and the countries that we work in. But today is all about Mexico. So why Mexico? Why is Mexico on your radar? Again, I'm having not being able to get to my control panel here. There we go. So why are you thinking of Mexico? What is it that is attractive for you? With all the places in the world that you could choose from, what is it that sparks your interest specifically about Mexico? Is its location? Is it the diversity of climate and geography, the multitude of beautiful beach fronts? Is it affordability, residency options, investment options, or just that abundance of adventure? So take a few seconds here and let us know what your number one is. I know we could have made this multiple choice, but I want to know, what is it? What's at the top of your list when you're choosing a place like Mexico to relocate to? So we're split about 50-50 here, beaches and affordability. And that's a great combination to have, is the ability to afford a beach lifestyle. So very cool, you guys. Thank you for participating in our polls. Again, we're just using it to really kind of guide the conversation. And you'll see throughout the presentation that we'll specifically address those areas of concern throughout the following slides. So you are here to explore common relocation questions as it pertains to Mexico, things like safety, cost of living, quality of life. Those are all really important. And as we've done these webinars, those are the topics that keep coming up as being at the forefront of people's minds. You're going to hear the truth. You know, we could sit here and we could paint pretty rainbows and butterflies for you guys, but the truth is that nowhere in the world is going to be perfect for everybody. And at the end of the day, we'll give you our experiences, we'll give you stories and anecdotal evidence, but at the end of the day, you have to make the decision on your own about where you're going to be comfortable and happy. And take a step closer. So by the end of this presentation, hopefully we've brought some things to the forefront for you and have helped you decide that, you know what, I am, you know, swaying towards Mexico even more now, and I need to do some more due diligence. Or, you know, maybe Mexico's not the right place for me and I should explore other options. All right, so let's jump into it. Andrea, let us know, where in the world is Mexico?
Thanks, Ali. Well, Mexico City is in North America. It is in the southest country from North America. And it is also one of the biggest countries, the third biggest country in Latin America. It's behind Brazil and Argentina. It has about 126 million people. The currency is the Mexican peso. The exchange compared to the dollar is 20-1. The primary language is Spanish. Most of the population are located in the center of the country. That's where Mexico City is. The country is divided into 31 states and one federal district, which is Mexico City. Each state has its own laws, its sovereignty, and Mexico City is like a autonomous city. It's like practically very, very similar to Washington, D.C. in the United States. It is divided. You can see that Mexico has two coasts. It has the Gulf of Mexico, which is opens to the Atlantic Ocean, which is in the east. In the west is the Pacific Ocean, and in the north is the United States, and in the south you will see Guatemala and Belize. So Mexico has most people speak Spanish, but at the same time, it is important to know that people also have a lot of American influence. So you would see many people also trying to speak in English, and also being very used to foreigners coming and going to Mexico for many reasons that we're going to talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And so why are people, you alluded to the fact that a lot of local Mexicans are used to having this influx of tourists, having an influx of North American or English speaking people. So why are people choosing Mexico?
And mostly, it is like a summary of what you were showing in your poll, the last poll that you did. People love the country because of the weather, also because that's why there are so many expat communities that are established there, mostly in the coast, like in the Caribbean coast and also in the Pacific coast. They have residency options, different, like temporary residency, the pensionado, you know, for retirees, the permanent residency if you want to live there. The quality of life, it's very is really good, not only because of the weather, but because there is more affordability in the cost of living there. Also, I'm going to talk later about the healthcare and other things, but like the healthcare in Mexico, especially private healthcare, is really good there. you can see that there are many people that come from the United States, cross the border to get attention in Mexico because of the affordability and because they know that the doctors and the dentists are really good. That was something that happened that started happening a long time ago. It was mostly that people would go to Mexico, but now it's something that we also talked in the other webinars about Central America, that many people from North America, Canada, and the United States are also going to Nicaragua, Honduras, to also get healthcare because of that affordability. So that is very important thing to know, that you can find really good healthcare in these countries, and that's why people are moving sometimes because of that. Other things are also the real estate. You can find amazing homes, and you're going to show later the contrast between what it would cost a home that is in front of the ocean in Mexico and another one that is oceanfront in other countries that are more developed. And you have a lot of culture in Mexico, so many places to visit, the beaches, the ruins, the history, the celebrations. The property taxes are also very low if you want to own a home there, and if you want to live. And well, I just mentioned also the healthcare. So we're going to show a little bit more of each of them in the next slides.
Yeah, perfect. And like you mentioned, it's all of these things, right? So you're transitioning into a place that offers all of these things, but what is the most important to you? So cost of living. So a single person, let's talk about it. The single person living without the cost of rent. So let's say you own a home in Mexico, so you're not paying a monthly rent fee or whatever you want to call it, but you can live comfortably. And when we say comfortably, you're not penny pinching. You're not really, you may be budget oriented and you may have a budget in mind, but you're not having to sacrifice certain things like you would potentially in other places. You're lowering your cost of living, right? For about $900 to $2,000 a month, really depending on where you choose to be. So for example, if you're wanting to live in places like Cancun, obviously your cost of living is going to be a little bit different than it will be in, let's say, Puerto Vallarta. So there's a lot of different variables that play into this cost. And on the right there, you can see the hourly rate for cleaning. Are you going to have a housekeeper? Do you want to do your own chores, or do you want to be able to hire somebody to do those for you? Utilities. This one is huge in this region because electricity is a lot more costly than it is in North America. So are you going to open your windows? Are you going to use fans, or do you really like the AC? So lots of different variables there, but overall, people are saying from the US are saying that they save between 50 and 65% of their previous monthly costs when they make the move to Mexico. And here's that cost comparison we were talking about. Because Mexico is so diverse in what it has to offer, different places have different price points for different homes. What we did here was we pulled this directly off of a real estate broker's page from Mexico, and you can see that the price point is right around the $300,000 US mark. But you can see that based on the different location, you're going to get a little bit different kind of home for that same price. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about this quality of life, about the cost of living. Can you be somewhere that's a little more remote, where you can get a larger home with finer finishings and things like that? Or do you want to live where the action is happening, where there's great nightlife and there's lots of tourism? And are you okay living in maybe a smaller home at that same price point? So lots of things can go into play there. Just something you should be aware of and do some good hard research on about what it is that your end goal is and the quality and style of life that you want to live when making the move. And safety, this is always like top two, I would say, probably with everybody we speak to when they are considering moving to Central America. It's hard because the whole region tends to get a bad rap about being unsafe and being a scary, dark place, and there's crime all around you and things like that. but what I would say, and what I would tell everybody here on the line, or those that are watching this later, that you know, do your own due diligence. Go out there and get your boots on the ground. Go get your own feel for different places. You know, one city may not feel the same to you, as safe as another city. Different places have different kinds of, you know, people coming in and out, whether it's tourists or locals that, you know, transport or what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I just drew a blank. But if they're moving through the cities, locals and tourists alike, commute, didn't even start with a T. If there's people commuting through the cities, that's obviously going to change the safety stats a little bit. And I know, Patrick, that you know, this is something that you know a lot about, in fact, about Mexico specifically. And so I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about, you know, safety, but the reality is you have the opportunity to go and feel it out and decide for yourself. Talk to people that live there, talk to people that have visited, talk to the people that have actually been there and gone and done it. And you can put value into those that haven't. You can do that if you'd like, but obviously those that have experienced it firsthand are going to be able to tell you the good and the bad as well. So Patrick, I'll let you kind of speak to the whole safety topic here as it relates to Mexico.
Yeah, sure, Ellie. I mean, first of all, Mexico in general is a huge country and very diverse. So it's kind of like saying, like, to do a 1 hour webinar in Mexico is kind of like saying do a 1 hour webinar on the United States, right? New York and LA have completely different climates, and you know, Kentucky and Seattle are, you know, they're totally different, right? So, you know, everything is the same in a country the size of Mexico. When we did our other webinars on, you know, El Salvador, for instance, it's a much smaller country, although it has a lot of diversity as well. It's a little easier to kind of cram in everything into that. But, you know, Mexico having the two oceans and so much going on in the interior as well, that it's really hard to talk about. And that applies to safety as well. Obviously, there are safe areas and there are unsafe areas. There are, you know, safe ways to behave and unsafe ways to behave. There are safe times a day and unsafe times a day. So, and that goes for anywhere in the world. But, you know, that's no different for Mexico. I think, you know, but we talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're going to say it. And I think one thing that is unfortunate for Mexico that has been fortunate for the rest of Central America is when they crack down on the drug cartels in Colombia, a lot of it moved to Mexico, and that caused a lot of problems over the last couple decades in Mexico from a crime rate perspective. The beauty for the rest of the rest of Central America, though, is that we're no longer the corridor for a lot of that drug trade. So what used to come from Colombia, I mean, let's face it, the United States is the destination for the drugs. That's the market. And the supply used to be in Colombia, and now it's more so in Mexico. When it was in Colombia, all that drug was moving through, you know, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, all the countries on the way up, and, you know, causing problems along the way. When that shifted from Colombia over to Mexico, you know, the crime rates in El Salvador, Honduras, and everything dropped dramatically, partly due to that, you know, largely due to that. And unfortunately for Mexico, you know, the crime rate is in some areas has gotten worse. But again, you got to use common sense with this, right? I mean, you watch the mainstream media and you see some, you know, shots being taken at, you know, drug cartels, you know, in terms of, not literally, I mean, like, you know, basically saying it's a big warlord country now, and that's just not true. I mean, anybody that travels to Mexico on vacation knows that's not the case. So, you know, there's perfectly safe areas to be in, and again, the country is so large that it depends always. Like I said in every webinar, it depends. If you're a drug dealer and you're out at 2 a.m., you know, your crime rate is probably going to affect you. But, you know, if you're a typical person that's enjoying your quiet life in a Mexican community, it's the same as being anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, again, it's just all about perception, right? So perception versus reality. But something here that you see on the screen is that real estate prices and cost of living are low because of this false belief of a lack of safety. And I know we're going to talk about that just a little bit here, just because Mexico is so diverse and what it has to offer as far as real estate options and opportunities, especially from the investment perspective. So talk to us a little bit about what's on our screen and kind of how to digest it and break it down.
Yeah, just to comment on what you're saying there, the cost of real estate is directly proportionate to the perception of safety in a lot of areas down here. So the more safe it's considered, the higher the real estate prices are. And of course, the length of time that these countries have been promoting themselves, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama to some extent, or have been promoting themselves in tourism for a long time. And that rises the cost of real estate as well. This slide, normally we have this slide comparing countries, but because Mexico is so large, it acts like a bunch of countries. So the way the slide works is that the top right is the more mature marketplaces, and the bottom left are the less mature, so to speak. So on the top right, you're going to end up paying more for real estate, and it's going to have less chance of capital gain because a lot of that capital gain has already happened. But theoretically, you're going to get a better rental return, for instance, if you're purchasing a property to rent out. In the lower left, these are newer areas becoming more popular. I was just in Mascota a little while ago looking at it for potential development there. San Miguel de Allende is a very popular spot coming up the curve as well. And so if you're looking as an investor for buying, for the capital gain, you're probably wanting to look more at the bottom left of the chart, because that's where you're going to see the biggest capital gain. Just on a side note, I remember, I think it was going to say 1990 or 92. I'm showing my age here, but I went to look at a property in Puerto Vallarta on a vacation, just happened to be there. And it was right on the ocean, nice little 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house with a pool, and thought, well, this would be pretty. I didn't have any money, but I was looking anyway. But they wanted $142,000 for it. I remember that. And I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to, I didn't have it, but even if I did, there's no way I'm going to put $142,000 into a offshore Mexican property that, I'd have to own through a trust and everything. But then, 2 years later, it came back and that house was on the market again, and it was just under $600,000. And then 3 or 4 years came back and looked at it again, it was just over $1 million. So, that was a large capital gain in a reasonably short period of time, where I was kicking myself for not having invested. So, I took that lesson, and then I ended up investing in Nicaragua. And because I thought, well, I see the same thing playing out again, right? Where the popularity of the country and the reason people want to be there is growing. And so, we've done investing in Honduras and Nicaragua, El Salvador. In my mind, a lot of the capital gain is already realized in Mexico, but it depends where in Mexico. Again, like I think in the Mascota area, Allende, some of those areas are still really likely to grow a lot. And they stand from an investor standpoint, good areas, really pretty towns as well.
Yeah, perfect. And something to note there, and as we move into climate and weather, is just, where do you want to be? Where is it an investment property, or are you planning to live there full time? I mean, all of those things will play into kind of the next steps that you take along this journey. So climate and weather, we've already talked about how big Mexico is and how diverse it is, and not only its geography, but also in its climates. And so, Andrea, I know you have talked about this. We talked about it a little bit before this presentation on just the types of diversity that we have as far as the different states and different climate zones. So tell us a little bit about wet season and dry season and temperatures across Mexico.
Yeah, so Mexico has only 2 seasons, as most of Latin America. The dry season goes from October to April, and the rainy season goes from May to October. And the northern part of Mexico is drier. The southern, it has more rain, and it's more like humid, you can say. The same in the extremes of Mexico, the coast, both coasts, like the Caribbean and the Pacific coast, they are more tropical type of weathers. So if somebody wants to move to Mexico and really wants to go to a tropical weather, they want to be close to the ocean, that's what the best place to go is the coast, right? Near the where you can have a beach. And even though some people are afraid that it's going to be too hot, the nice thing about that is that you are close to the ocean, so you will always have the ocean breeze. So it isn't as bad as when it is too dry because it has humidity. So it's great for the skin. But in the center of Mexico, you can find colder weather. Like for example, in Mexico City, it is about 8,500 feet above the ocean. So when it is really cold, like for January is the coldest month, you can get about 11 degrees centigrade, which is Fahrenheit.
In the low 50s.
Something like that. And the highest can be about 28, 20, 27. I use centigrades. So depending on the area of Mexico, it is the weather. So it is important that if you plan to move to Mexico, to see what kind of weather you like the most, if you wanted it more temperate or if you like it more tropical, because it's a big country, so there are many different diverse types of weather there.
Yeah, and weather is often like in the top 3 with cost of living and all the other things that people choose a location on. And because of Mexico's size, yeah, you really have a ultimate choice. You know, Puerto Vallarta is going to be similar in a way to like Southern California, where, you know, the interior, like you said, Mexico City or some of the other more highlands communities can get quite cold at night or in certain times of year. So depends on what you're looking for. So it's really got a lot of options.
Yeah, absolutely. So fun fact for you guys, as we move through the presentation, we have some of these sprinkled throughout, but the Yucatan. So Yucatan was named in confusion. And when I came across this little tidbit of information, it made me just think about how many times communication causes confusion. So language barriers and things like that. And I used Google Translate to help me try to pronounce what the Mayan said here, and I still can't. I practiced and I still can't do it correctly, and I don't want to be offensive. So, but the Yucatan Peninsula is said to have resulted from a miscommunication when a Spaniard asked a local Mayan the name of the area, and he replied, it sounded like the Yucatan, but it actually meant I don't understand you. So there's many times probably during your time in Mexico that you may struggle a little bit with the language if you're not fluent in Spanish and you're trying to communicate with the locals, where you will come across this situation. But what we have found is that most locals are willing to help you, and through hand gestures and different things like that, you're able to get across what it is you're trying to communicate. All right, healthcare. I know we keep saying these are all the big ones, but these are really, truly all the big things that people have concerns about when making a relocation decision. And luckily, we have a pediatrician here with us on the team and has that firsthand experience across the region. And so tell us a little bit, Andrea, about healthcare and what we can expect to find as far as level of quality of care and expenses and things like that in Mexico.
Sure, Ali. Well, as most of the Latin American countries, Mexico has 3 types of healthcare: the public, the private, and the social security. The public healthcare actually is really good when it is in the bigger cities. Like in Mexico City, you have really good hospitals. But the only problem in the public healthcare is that it's not accessible to everybody. So the places that are more isolated, they don't have really good healthcare at all. Another thing that I would say is that if you guys that are looking to Mexico, you want to know which one that you should pick. So the best one would be the private one, because in the public, it is, even if you're, for example, in Mexico City, you can in you're a resident, you can go to the public healthcare, right? You will be part of as a resident, you will be like a citizen, so you can access that. But the problem is that it's sometimes too overcrowded. Also, you would have a lot of time that you would have to wait for an attention, even though the public is free. But you won't have the type of care that you need, especially if you want to have an appointment right away. So the private one is a lot better, it's more accessible, it's really good. Me as a pediatrician, to tell you my experience, we in medical school, one of the best schools like that we would study protocols is the Mexican medical school. I was studying, when I was studying pediatrics, many of us that would go to different specializations to different countries, because you can study in your country, but then you want to go to other countries to specialize that are really good in what they're doing. And Mexico was one of the best places that you could go to study pediatrics, neurology, internal medicine, geriatrics. So they have really, really well prepared professionals, good equipments. But as I said, not every, Mexico is a very big country and it's still not a completely developed country. So you can find the best usually in the city. But if you're going to move in a town, some expat communities, you will have private facilities, but you would have to see how close to you they are, you know, and it would be important that you ask for that. To tell you like a case of how different it would be the cost if you go to a private healthcare. For example, if you go in Puerto Vallarta and you need, for example, a hernia surgery, you would need to go to a gastroenterologist. That appointment would be about $35. And you need a blood test, it could be about $40. Then if you need to do a cardiology test before you do a surgery, it is about $50. And the surgery per se would be about $5,300. And in the United States or other countries, it might be like triple that. So that is a lot more affordable.
Like 30 times that.
Yeah, well, it depends, right? But some people, even $5,300 might be a lot for some people. So you can have health insurance, and you can have a deductible, for example, of $1,000, and then the rest is going to be, you can claim the rest of what you have been spending, even the blood test, every appointment, and the surgery. So Patrick and I have a health insurance mostly for catastrophic diseases, or if we have a really bad accident that we're going to need healthcare for a long time. So our deductible is, for example, $5,000. So it all depends on what you want to prevent. And if you think, okay, I'm going to be visiting doctors all the time, I will want a local health insurance, right? That you don't have to pay as much as you would do it in your own country. And the health insurance you can claim everything that you spend and put it in your deductible. So if at that year you have a surgery, whatever, the deductible is already paid. So you have those choices, and there are tons of different health insurances that you can access to. It could be either international or local. We have contacts of people that help us with the health insurance, and if you guys are interested, anytime we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may play into where you choose to be as well. I mean, you've got to think, if you are going to need, routine care, that you may want to be in a location that's very close to one of these private facilities.
One thing I was going to mention too, obviously, Mexico is kind of well known for medical tourism as well. Some of the other countries here are not so much, but a lot of people do come down specifically for healthcare or dental care. Now, I think this little story might help people kind of put things into perspective. So when I was back in Canada, I'm coming down to this area a lot. I went to a Canadian dentist. I was going to have a bunch of teeth changed, basically crowns and everything done. It was going to be very expensive, at least at that time. It was going to be, this is all converted to US dollars, but about $28,000 in Canada to have this work done. And I happened to stop by in Mexico on the way down and check there, and it was just over around 8,500. So that was the difference in price. And then ended up going to Nicaragua, and it was under $3,000. So it was 1/10 of the price in Nicaragua as it was in Canada, and about 1/4 or so in 1/3, 1/4 to 1/3 in Mexico, what it was. So a lot of people do come down to these countries specifically for dental work or healthcare or of various types.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that before people would go a lot to Mexico, but then Central America became also a place where people would say, oh, wow, they have really good dentists and doctors, and they would come even here, here is even like Nicaragua is even more affordable than Mexico to get your teeth done. So that is something that is just the last few years that people have realized that.
Yeah, and for services that you can't find, let's say in Nicaragua or Belize, people do end up going to Mexico because it is closer and more accessible. So lots of reasons to check out the healthcare there in Mexico for sure. So we've talked about
had a family member come down that paid for her trip because she was getting 2 teeth done. It was going to be $4,000 in Canada, and it was under $500 well, this was Nicaragua again, but similar to what it would be in Mexico. And so she paid for her whole trip by the difference. Stayed for a few weeks and enjoyed her time in the tropics rather than just pay $4,000 for the teeth.
Right. Yeah, make a trip out of it for sure. All right, here is poll number 3, a little break in the action here for you. Do you already speak Spanish? And if so, what level of Spanish do you speak? See, so Andrea, I'll let you read out those poll choices there. Can you see them on your side?
Yes, in the Spanish part?
All of it.
Sí, yo soy fluido. Yes, I am fluent. Un poquito. A little bit. I know enough to get by. No, nada. Nope, nothing. I'm just winging it. Other, let us know in the Q&A.
So if you can only read other, that's your choice.
or no, nada. I think we all know no. No is no in English as well.
Yeah.
But we're just having a little fun here, you guys. Something that I'm not embarrassed about, but something I can admit is that even after taking many years of Spanish in high school, junior high and high school, in fact, I didn't practice it after that and essentially lost all of it. Even living in Texas and being in San Antonio, Texas, I didn't speak it nearly enough, more so just to order food or, be a part of jokes. But, and then making the move to Belize, again, that's an English speaking country. And now here in Panama, I really feel bad that I didn't brush up a little bit on my Spanish. So something to note here, though, is if you don't speak Spanish very well yet, which actually the majority of you say that, nope, you're winging it. So kudos to you for being brave enough to mention that. Again, the locals are happy to help you. They are actually happy that you are there. You're getting to know them. You're getting to know the culture. You're stopping to buy the fruit stands on the side of the road. So they're going to help you. And as long as you are able to, laugh at yourself and laugh with them when they laugh at you, you're probably going to be just fine. All right. Moving right along here, we are going to talk a little bit about the communities. These are those established expat communities that we've talked about. Some of them are a little more popular than others, but you'll see here that each one kind of has a different distinction about it. For example, Puerto Vallarta is a major international resort type of area. You're going to have people and tourists coming in and out of the area frequently, whereas somewhere like Lake Chapala, you're going to have your fishermen. You're going to have a more probably laissez-faire, kind of laid back kind of lifestyle. Where San Miguel de Allende, it's rich in arts and crafts and traditions and things like that. So every place that you go has a little something different to offer. And I always get the question, well, how do you meet people? How do you get out and kind of find people that you want to socialize with and you want to spend time with and share stories with and talk about your journey? And really the best way to do that is to get out and to go talk to people. And, chances are that if you see somebody sitting you know, on a beach somewhere, and you try to strike up a conversation with them, chances are they're going to respond. And again, they're there, they're happy, they want to find people just like them, to be able to share in experiences and memories and things like that. Another great way to meet people and kind of immerse yourself into expat communities specifically are, you know, I hate to say it, but social media groups. Facebook has tons of expat community pages and groups that you can join. Even before you make the move down to Mexico, you may be able to join and start learning a bit more about the community that you're specifically interested in. And you're probably, once you do finally get to your destination, you'll be able to recognize some names and some faces, and it just makes that whole transition a little bit easier for you. But what if you are bringing your kiddos with you? You know, that this is something that we've actually seen an uptick in a lot more recently, is people are actually bringing their families with them. You know, and probably over the last decade or so, it's really been like more of a retirement type scenario where, you know, you're going to live out your golden years in a tropical location away from the snow. But now we're starting to see people asking questions about bringing their school-age children into the region, and how do you find a place where not only will they fit in, but they're going to get a level of education that they need in order to go on and be successful in their lives. And so you can see on the screen, there's a couple of different options for you. Obviously, there are public schools that you may want to, you know, kind of get to know where they are located, because you want your kids to immerse themselves. You want them to have friends that are local, and honestly, kids will learn Spanish and pick up Spanish a lot quicker than adults do. Private schools are an option. They can cost a little bit, so you'll want to figure that into your cost of living. Some of them do have a religious component. Your best option that we've seen are the international schools. You know, if you're looking for, you know, bigger picture for your kid to be able to go to college in other local locations or destinations in other places of the world, maybe outside of Mexico, and you want their credits to transfer and be recognized, an international school is a great option for that. And there are some that are scattered out throughout Mexico. But something that I have found a lot of people are more interested in is a homeschool hybrid. So if you're comfortable with having your child and teaching your child some of the foundational material and education, and then sending them to a public or private school where they do speak Spanish, where they can learn a little bit more of the culture and things like that from the actual local kiddos, then you may want to consider kind of that hybrid schooling system there. All right, exploring the country. So Patrick, it sounds like you have had actually the most experience in exploring the most parts of the country. So talk to us a little bit about exploring Mexico.
Again, that's a big question, right? Just because of the diversity of the country. I mean, I've spent probably the most time in Mexico and on the west coast, on the Pacific side. But Andrea and I lived in Belize for 3 years, and that was an easy route. You can literally drive right to Chetumal, which is the border town, and then up to Tulum and Cancun in that area. So, you know, that we did end up spending quite a bit of time there as well. For work, I've had to have been all over the place in Mexico, and excuse me, flying into Mexico City is always pretty amazing. I mean, I think it's the fifth or sixth largest country or city in the world. You know, 22-ish million people, and it's quite spread out. And when you're flying in, you're coming down and you're looking, and it's just city as far as you can see. And you know, it's amazing. But then there, like San Miguel de Allende is not too far from there, and that's a very artsy kind of area. So there's so much to explore, and you know, cenotes and Mayan and Aztec ruins and things like that. Obviously, the things that Mexico is known for, but just a huge diversity of things to look and see in Mexico. So again, and we were mentioning earlier, the climate, you know, it's so diverse as well that, you know, if you're in the central northern part, you're going to have more like, you know, typical 4 seasons like Texas does, for instance. And maybe not the extreme 4 seasons that I had as a Canadian growing up in the prairies, but but still a difference in seasons. And then, if you're in the coastal Pacific side, you're going to have more of the, like the Southern California kind of climate. So, it depends what you're looking for. There's so much to see, and it's pretty easy getting around in the country. Obviously, it's a big country again, where you can drive it. There's lots of busing. There's, obviously there's local flights from, I've taken the flight from Mexico City to Puerto Vallarta area a few times, and just these quick little regional planes, just like the U.S. has. So, it's easy to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And something about exploring too is at the very bottom of this slide, it says, tours and excursions, when you're going on them, do you want to take a tour guide with you? Do you want to pay a little extra and go on these, professional tours that they have put together? And if you can afford to do that, I would highly, highly recommend it, just because your tour guide interjects so much information, background information, cultural information about these places, that you walk away feeling like you've crammed an encyclopedia into your brain, because they're able to tell you so much and they're so passionate about sharing it with you. So I would highly recommend taking a tour guide with you, or hiring a private tour guide to go with you, because they just have so much knowledge about these places that they're taking you to, that they want to pass along. So fun fact number 2, I don't know about you guys, I love ice cream, but when I came across this one, I really had to pause, because they love to eat tuna ice cream, and we're not talking about the fish. So there on the right side of your screen, you'll see is what the Mexicans refer to as a cactus flower ice cream. So tuna is a cactus blossom, basically. And it's a sorbet that's made from the fruits of a prickly pear cacti known as tuna. So not the kind of tuna that you probably have heard about, tuna salad and things like that. I've not personally tasted tuna salad. It's definitely on my list now, though, so that I can scare others when I'm able to tell them that I had tuna ice cream.
It was a fun side fact to that is I was with a landscaper in the region, and she was saying, yeah, we're going to plant tuna there and there and there and there. And it's like, you're putting fish in the ground, or what's going on here? But they call that type of cactus a tuna.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, it's good.
It's good.
It's good. And again, if you guys have joined us for any of our previous webinars, you know that this is pretty much my favorite part of the presentation. I just love food, and I love talking about gastronomy of these different countries. And although they are very similar and there's a lot of crossover between the region, something that I noticed was that there are many Mexicos inside of Mexico as far as culture and cuisine is concerned. So in the north of Mexico, you'll find things like meat dishes. They really love their meats. Whereas the Oaxaca region, they are savory tamales, tortillas, and like a mole. And I really hadn't had a good mole until I actually visited a friend's house whose parents were from Mexico. This was back in Texas. And they made one for me, and it's incredible. It's just amazing. Yucatan is known for its tropical fruits, and then you have your mountainous regions like birria. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's been tons of, I guess I just have never noticed it, birria tacos are like this really big thing right now on social media. So that's my next attempt. I'm going to try to make some birria tacos. And then of course your Pacific Coast and Baja California, your seafood is pretty much what dominates the cuisine there. And of course, your celebrations. We love to talk about our celebrations. We're just a very celebratory family here at EcoVillages. But across the region, something that the locals are very proud of is where they've come from and kind of the story that brought them to where they are today. So you'll see, Andrea, tell us a little bit about Semana Santa, these other celebrations that Mexico really has brought to the forefront for a lot of people.
Yes, Ali. Semana Santa, for example, it's Easter, right? It is about the passion, the death, and resurrection of Christ. It is something really important that Latin America is primarily Catholic, so these are Catholic events. it becomes like a week, a very important week that you would see tons of parades. People go to churches, and it also makes people, it is a holiday, so nobody works, nobody goes to school. So it is pretty something really to respect, you know, the Catholic religion, which is what I said is mostly what Latin America practices as a religion, right? The Dia de la Independencia is also one of the most important events in Mexico. It is, they are commemorating 1810 when the independence started. They started battling their independence from the Spanish. You know, most Latin America has their Independence Day from the colonization. So this is an important time when they call it the Grito de Dolores, which is the Dolores scream or yell. That Dolores was a town that when in that town the independence battle started, and it lasted for about 11 years. So in 1821, it was like the day that they could say we are free. And they also, well, they have parties, fireworks, you know, tons of flags showing how proud they are of their country. One thing that I see a lot about Mexicans is how proud they are about their culture, and their art, their country per se. That they're very, very proud and love to show it to the world, which is something I really respect. And they should, right? They have amazing food, they have amazing culture. I remember since I was a kid, and I was also telling Patrick that we've been always very influenced, known a lot about Mexican culture. And one of the things was that in Latin America, if you wanted to be a famous star, a famous artist, a singer or an actor, if you made it in Mexico, you would make it in the whole Latin America. You became really famous. So it was like the United States for the artists, the Anglo-Saxon artists, the same is in Mexico for Latin America, right? And the Dia de los Muertos, this is something that happened in pre-Hispanic times, where before the Spanish came, the Mayans, the Aztecs, they would honor their death. But then the Spanish came, and they made it like this event to commemorate all the people that have died, usually because of bad deaths of violence, you know, accidents. And they would have 2 days, November 1st and 2nd. November 1st is for Todos los Santos, which is for the children, and 2nd is for the adults. And people will go to the cemeteries to give flowers, you know, food to their deaths, because it is a belief that during those days their spirits come back to have a dinner and like be with their loved ones. So it is a commemoration, and it is a celebration of life after death. So yeah, those are, and you see that the painting in their faces is called La Catrina, which is the symbol of death. And you can see that tons of people in Halloween, they use this, right? But that comes from Mexico, Dia de los Muertos.
And you might note that Cinco de Mayo is not on here.
No.
It's not a Mexican thing, a lot of people think.
Exactly. I feel like probably us in the States probably celebrated that more than any other place in the world, but yeah. So poll number 4, we're nearing the end here, guys. So thanks for staying tuned with us. So what is your timeline to relocate or own? This is something that we ask in every presentation, just to kind of get an idea of where you are in your journey. Are you just starting out? Are you ready right now? Are you looking at a relocation between now and maybe 6 months or a year? Maybe you are just starting out your journey and you're not quite sure what that looks like for you. And if there's somewhere in between or something that fits your specific situation, let us know in the Q&A, just so we kind of have an idea of where's everybody's thoughts and things like that. So it looks like we're at a 3-way split here between being ready right now, maybe in the next 6 to 12 months, and then not sure, just starting to explore your options. So it looks like we're all at different places, and that's okay. What I love is that, you know, the people that even are ready right now to make a move are joining us today to get just a little bit more information and really find out if Mexico is right for you. So from tourist to resident, something I just want to preface this section with is there are so many different ways to not only come into Mexico as a tourist, but also to get your residency. So Patrick, I'll let you talk a little bit on this section, and we'll go through a few specifics, but just note that it does change quite frequently. And you know, we don't want to nail down any true specific numbers for you here, but we are going to give you the general process of what that looks like.
Yeah, I'd encourage people to kind of send us an email at questions@EcoVillages.Life on these topics, because like you said, the dollar amounts change, the method, you know, the process that you have to go through changes occasionally at least. And so, you know, because these webinars are being recorded, we don't want somebody going a year from now seeing it and saying, well, you said it was this and it's not, and because it does change. And like you said, there's also, Mexico has a lot of different ways to become a temporary resident and then become a permanent resident after the temporary one. I think you have it on the next slide, Ellie, that you know, one of the options is to, right now it's around $174,000. And again, that's not always that clear in the Mexican documentation, but one of the easier ways, I guess, to get the temporary residency, which is you need for 4 years, and then you can apply for permanent residency, is to do that through purchasing a real estate. Excuse me, purchasing real estate. One of the I said earlier in the webinar that the first place I ever owned a property outside of Canada was in Mexico, and ultimately I ended up purchasing it, you know, in other countries down in Central America, but Mexico was sort of my first foray into the area. And one of the reasons that I wasn't thrilled, and to be honest, with Mexico for owning real estate was because of the fideicomiso. And really there's a lot of confusion around that. And really what the laws, just to try to clarify that for everybody, the laws in Mexico clearly state that foreigners cannot own property within 50 kilometers of the oceans or 100 kilometers of a border. So those jurisdictions, those regions are off limits for foreigners to own property. Inside of that country, you can. But the way that people get around that is through a fideicomiso. And what that is really a trust. You know, it's generally set up by a bank. The bank holds the trust, and you are the benefactor of that trust. It has to be renewed in 50 years, and there's a bunch of different rules. But, you know, in hindsight, I probably made too much of that, you know, and you know, it probably doesn't really affect your, you know, the value of your property or what you can do with it really much at all. But I felt if I'm questioning the fact that I have to own this property through a trust that's not really my freehold title, it's a Mexican bank trust, then the next guy might do that too, and it might it might make him not want to buy the property. So, you know, again, then I was looking for capital gain investments in property, and that made me somewhat nervous. Whereas the other countries that I ended up investing with allow you to just, as a foreigner, have exactly the same ownership rights and freehold title as a resident or citizen of those countries. So, like I said, I might be making too much of it, but people are confused about it because they hear that, you know, foreigners cannot own property right on the coast, and technically that is true. You have to do it through the fideicomiso trust approach, and you become the beneficiary of the trust, not the actual owner of the land. The trust owns the land. Right. So hopefully that clears things up. And again, you know, like I said, if you are going for the temporary residency in Mexico, you can do that. And then after 4 years, you can apply for permanent residency. And it's kind of your longer term pathway to Mexican citizenship.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to actually qualify, and the paperwork is a little different depending on what header you are under, whether it's, you know, if you're coming in as a missionary versus coming in as a student versus coming in as something else. And that's why, again, we could probably do an entire hour webinar on just Mexican residencies. But anyways, if you have questions about something specifically, your situation or scenario specifically, or what your end goal is, then like Patrick mentioned, questions at EcoVillages.Life, and we'll be sure to get some answers put together for you that's more relevant to you. So fun fact 3 here is that chocolate originated in Mexico. And when we're talking about chocolate, we're talking about those cacao beans that were ground up, and originally they were used in ceremonial drinks by the Mayas, and then along the way got passed down through these different tribes and things like that, and eventually became the drink of the gods. And the cacao beans were actually used as currency, which valued them above gold. So, you know, I love chocolate as much as the next person. So very, very cool to see that they also felt the same way that I do in present times. So here we are at the end of our Mexico presentation. Those of you that have joined us previously, you may have been expecting to see a section about taxes or banking. And again, we just found that we weren't able to provide people with really relevant information because we had to be so broad when speaking about it. So we decided to take that part out for this presentation. Of course, again, reach out to us if banking is something that you really want to know more about. We have answers for you, as well as what the tax structures look like. So feel free to reach out to us, questions at EcoVillages.Life. But here at the end, how did our team rate Mexico on the expat compatibility scale? So we scored it at 92 out of 100, and you can see there on the screen kind of the different levels of what scored higher, what scored lower. And something to note here is it is quite subjective. You know, I probably weigh things like being foreigner friendly a little higher than I do on governance and taxes. I mean, that's something from an investor versus somebody who's going to be working in country. Versus somebody whose income is coming from a foreign country. So just note that as you're looking across this, but overall we gave Mexico an A at a 92 out of 100 there. All right, so last poll of the day here, we've alluded to it a little bit throughout the presentation, but if you're not sure about Mexico, if you are looking across the region and are considering other spots in the Central American region, which spots are you considering? Which countries are on your radar? Again, we've done, and here on the next slide I'll show you, but we've done these presentations for all of the countries in Central America. And, you know, something that you might want to look at is listen to these webinars, listen to those high points of consideration for you, like cost of living, like quality of life, and compare. And what's great is we have broken them down into the sections. So safety, cost of living, schools, and community. We've broken those webinars down into those specific sections so that you don't have to listen to the entire webinar if you don't want to. If you're really just, you know, you have your top 3, you're welcome to skip ahead and listen into those specific spots. But we have some people here that are actually looking at Honduras and Nicaragua. So I definitely encourage you to check those webinars out if you haven't yet, but also join us in, well, I say the coming weeks, but next week is actually our last country webinar here. It will be on the country of Costa Rica. So again, Costa Rica is another very popular destination for those looking to relocate. We'll be going through the same types of subject areas that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks. But on our website, we have a webinar gallery where you can find these on-demand recordings that are absolutely free. There's no cost associated to access them. And again, like I mentioned, you'll let us know, submit the request, and you'll get an email that shows up in your inbox. And in that email will be the full recording, as well as the sections will be linked to those topics of discussion. But there is the website, www.EcoVillages.Life. And like Patrick has pointed out in the past, it's not .com, it is .life. So don't get that confused, but questions at EcoVillages.Life. And if you're ready to head there right now, you can scan the QR code right there in the bottom right hand of your screen, and it'll take you directly there. If you're looking for the webinar gallery, it's right across the top and it'll say webinars, and you can check out any and all of the other country presentations that you would like. So we thank you all for joining us today. I believe we have some people that are sending us emails about their questions, which is awesome. You guys will get in touch with you directly about your specific situation, and happy to provide you some more relevant information for that. But other than that, Andrea, Patrick, do you have any closing comments, thoughts?
Well, thanks, Ellie. I actually did want to mention one last thing before we go, is that although you mentioned it, we're not tax attorneys, we're not, bankers and all those things, but because of what we do for a living, in all these different countries, we're in touch with all those kind of people all the time. And so, the whole point of this webinar series was to help people that are looking at relocating not have to go through the school of hard knocks like we did, learning on our own with everything. So I do encourage you to send us a message. Don't be shy about it. We love to hear from you, and we can put you in touch with the trusted people that we know, whether it's offshore banking or tax questions or residency lawyers and things like that. So please do check with us, and we're happy to point you in the right direction. We'd rather that you have a great experience and come down and be our neighbors, and not be disappointed in the whole path that you took getting down.
Yeah, and thank you guys for attending. As Patrick said, we're here to help. So just send us an email, and any of us is gonna respond to any of your inquiries.
Absolutely. All right, you guys. Well, another great webinar here in the books, and tune in later. But we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.